welcome to everybody. Thank you all for actually making it down and coming down for this. This is something that's very, very exciting for all of us. It's the first time we're the Hideout I've ever hosted, I guess, an event like this. But the whole point of this is to essentially be an open conversation centered around neurodiversity, centered around queer and trans community, centered around mental health. It's mostly going to be us yapping at you more than anything else, but also feel free to join us in the conversations. We're basically mostly going to be sharing our own experiences with our various levels of spicy brain and what that's meant for our careers, how we've overcome it, how we think other people can also help enable anybody else who may have various mental health conditions or levels of neurodivergency or any of the above. So ask us a load of questions, feel free to chat to us. But we are of course featured by the person who has kickstarted this whole thing, which is Ahsoka here. This is all of their idea. This is all spearheaded by them. It was them who approached us, so we're very happy to host. And then after the chat as well, they'll be jumping on the bar with me from about 6 p.m-ish, and we're just gonna get shit-faced and just chat shit about tism. That sounds pretty cool.
Risen with the tism.
Oh yeah.
I hated that.
I hated that. I already had it.
Let's sit down.
Bye.
Sarah, all the best. But yeah, Ahsoka,
Cool, perfect.
lead the charge.
So my name is Ahsoka Wallace. I'm a head bartender of Layton Calling down in London, and I also sit on the Drinks Advisory Council for Drinks United. We started this up last year as part of the Drinks Trust, the WSET, and the Wine and Spirit Association. The big thing that I basically started these talks doing was to bring more awareness around the fact that there is, so according to the Hidden Trevorcent, which is a podcast by Ben Branson, who does neurodiversity work, the hospitality industry roughly has about 50% of neurodivergent individuals working in the sector, which equates to 1.78 million, I think, of neurodivergent people in the industry. And it kind of got me thinking. So when I became a bar manager back home in Scotland, the big thing I realised was that there was often not conversations around communication, around team members' needs, and about people needed. And again, it was a lot of careless blame, being like, that person doesn't work hard enough, or they haven't done the job right. And the realization that I had when I was managing people was that it was because there was often a barrier to actually how we did communicate, or even how you gave instructions or information, knowledge, wasn't actually always accessible. And people don't normally feel comfortable or safe to always approach their employer to actually bring this up. You know, whether you're queer, neurodivergent, or from a minority background, we can often be marginalised, and you can feel unsafe. And often I've come across people in the industry who use their authority and belittle others. So the talks have always been around this idea of the more we talk about it, we bring awareness and so on. Yes, I asked Steve and Jordan here today to kind of speak about their experiences, and just I wanted to hear a bit more about their stories. When did you know that you were part of the kind of neurodivergent community, and when did you realise?
You want to start?
Alright, I'll kick off my lore.
Lord up.
I'm gonna lord up on everyone. Right, so I actually have a very weird story about realising that I was firstly diagnosed with autism, later with psychosis and borderline personality disorder. So I was about 15 and I realised that I really didn't work the same as everyone else I knew. And I went to my mum and I was like, Mum, I've been reading up on this a little bit. Do you think possibly I'm autistic? And she went, oh yeah, we know. And I was like, what do you mean you know that I'm autistic? And she was like, yeah, you've been diagnosed. We just didn't want to tell you because we thought that you would use it as an excuse. And for about 2 weeks, I was like so mad. I didn't talk to them. I was fuming. I was like, I could have known this whole time, like what was going on, why I felt so weird. And then I went, you know what? Actually, I know what I'm like, and I probably would have used it as an excuse. But it's really difficult sometimes when you get blamed of something like that, because it can be hard to realise why you are a certain way and why you do work differently and you need different things. And sometimes, for me, pushing through it was the best thing, and means that I now, feel comfortable doing things like this, which I never would have initially. Feel comfortable working in bars, working in environments where you are connecting with people and talking. But that's not the same for everyone. Everyone's got different needs and different wants, so having that knowledge behind you can be really useful, especially if you're like looking to possibly get diagnosed because you're not sure. I'd say like looking into it's always a really good thing.
Oh, 100%. And yourself?
Yeah, mine's a lot more on the mental health side. So, Minnie Lawn your boy here is diagnosed both depression and anxiety, which is really lovely. The cure to depression is going outside, the cure to anxiety is staying inside. So if I live in a doorway for the rest of my life, I might be fine, but of course that's not possible.
I nearly did a spit take.
Not in public. And then I'd say in the last 2 years, it's been a lot more of understanding on me being on the autism spectrum as well. Growing up, really very challenging, especially with social scenarios. I really struggled with certain social cues, especially surrounding things that like most people apparently know, or things that people just naturally like assume somebody else knows. These are things that I don't understand. Like assumptions very much confuse me and give me anxiety, and that's a whole another kettle of worms. But yeah, like prior to, I guess another big reason why I wanted to be a part of the panel on this is because we have an opportunity to talk about it within the field of hospitality. So, law dump hospitality wasn't supposed to be my career. The Hideout boys know this, but I was trying to be a university lecturer within astrophysics. So went all the way, had a master's degree in it, and then when it came to applying for PhDs, I felt pretty let down by a community that I know, like I've been failed at by certain lecturers, mostly because of things that I didn't understand, being belittled, and then inherently proven them wrong by just working my ass off and trying to understand my own way. But the main thing that drove me to wanting to be in the role of a teacher was to help other people realize that if you just care enough about something, you can just achieve whatever you want to, and that was the driving force for me to go into lecturing. Didn't work out. Ended up having a fantastic mentor and bar manager at the previous place I worked at before here, and fell in love with the community because they actually found that hospitality, you naturally give more of a shit about your colleagues than physicists ever did. The stereotype is very true, like they're academically incredible, socially inept, whereas here people are a lot more socially aware. So this ended up becoming like much more of a safe space, and it was through hospitality that I actually was a lot more able to communicate about, or openly communicate about my mental health. It was one of the first things I discussed when I moved over to the Hideout. I was like, these are things that affect my brain quite significantly, and my mood and my emotions. Not usually my ability to work in front of guests, because as soon as it comes to service, it's like a switch gets flicked in my head, but sometimes it can affect me. Whereas it was hospitality that gave me the platform to be able to openly discuss this kind of things, but if this was me 3 years ago, then it never would have happened. So that's the law done.
But again, it's a really interesting kind of area when you start to break it down and look at it. I mean, I was diagnosed when I was maybe 4 or 5. I was very typical autistic kid, of where I was very mute, didn't socialise well with others. Again, there was a lot of issues with just getting me to do simple everyday tasks. Like I would wake up and I go, I just want to wear the same clothes every single day, even if they were dirty, because it was still comfortable.
I still do that.
And again, and for the longest time I really rejected a lot of my dyspraxia, my autism, because I hated what the stigma was around it. And when I went to school, it was the accommodations made to support people weren't always the best. And so I wanted to join the army, and when I went to go join the army, I got told I couldn't because I was autistic, and that really pushed me away. And I ended up moving to Cardiff, working in hospitality for a little bit, and got confidence, joined the army, through an appeal process, did it, and realised I wasn't actually who I wasn't. And I think when I left the army, there was a good year or so when I still wasn't quite sure. I just threw myself back into hospitality and just did whatever. And I didn't really actually try and acknowledge that I had my own issues with depression. I had my autism. I was also quite queer. I came as non-binary. The same year I left the army. And I think there was a lot of little things changing. I wasn't really spending the time to actually acknowledge what that kind of looked like. And so I went through a bit of a journey with homelessness and depression, and 3 years ago I pretty much went back home to Scotland and started my life again. And through getting mentorship and qualifications, it have helped me realise where I wanted to be. And I think that's something you both touched upon, is within the industry, I think you can flesh stuff out. You get to meet people and you get to actually talk about stuff socially in almost an alternative way that actually helps us challenge a lot of societal norms. What's something that you found you've excelled at in the industry because of the way your brain works?
I think the way, and I mean you've said you're dyspraxic as well, I am also dyspraxic. I feel like they go hand in hand really, don't they? But I think you have to work twice as hard to do things that people can just normally do. So I was saying to you earlier, it took me ages to even be able to like pour properly. I didn't know how to pour bottles or use speed pourers or like physically do it, and my hands weren't doing what my brain was telling them to do. So I then was like, oh, I'm shit, I suck, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. But then you get over that and you go, I just need to work harder. And I threw myself into doing everything. I threw myself into like being able to even just bartend. And working literally twice as hard as everyone around you can suck, because it's annoying when things come easily to other people, but it means that you have this sort of perseverance that other people don't do. So I'd come to every talk, I'd come to every tasting, I'd research everything, I'd like memorize lists and lists of like classic cocktails. I'd do everything I could to try and then be better than the people who it came naturally to. I'm also very competitive. So then that meant that, I ended up gaining a lot more knowledge than people who I started alongside, and I got further. So I don't know, it's useful.
No, amazing. Yourself?
For me, it's a bit of a weird thing, in the sense that like the more I've understood about like my mental health, the further I've gotten along with therapy. I found it so much easier to be able to openly ask colleagues or managers, or simply if I am in management, create systems to help other people who also may be feeling like a certain way. As an example, let's say, I don't know, like I'm a bloke, I really struggle talking about emotions just in a normal sense, and I'm aware of this. But if you have an open system where like, instead of, like if you notice that somebody is feeling very down or not themselves, or not, they're just stuck in their own head, or they're lashing out at random things, the natural thing to do, if you have any kind of empathy is be like, how are you? You alright? I don't know if this is the same with you two, but with me as a bloke, the instant response is to go, yeah, fine. Yeah, fine. What I've found as the years have gone on is challenge people a little bit more. Actually look them in the eye and then go, are you actually okay? Because you don't seem it, like you seem a little bit off, or you seem a little bit down. Because what that instantly creates is, you've built that person a platform and helped them to stand on there where they feel like they can actually express themselves. Because from my own experience, you're just stuck in your own head a lot when it comes to, like, for me specifically with depression and anxiety. Depression wants to make you belittle yourself in every single way. The anxiety makes you scared about wanting to talk about anything, or making you feel like that you're inherently a failure at random things. This isn't like a woe is me kind of speech, it's just the genuine facts of how specifically my brain works. So the further along in my mental health journey I've gotten, the more I've been able to recognize signs in other people and then actually go, well, this one person actually challenged me. Let me try on somebody else and see if it works. And instantly, it's like you snap out of it, and immediately you've got your mate, co-worker, team member, team leader back, whatever their title is. Do you know what I mean? So it may sound mental as a simple act, but the more I understand myself, the more I understand other people, which is the most mental statement to say out loud, but I hope the story at least puts a little bit of context to it.
So again, I think there's something to really be said about, again, actually, you know, you're going to spend, 40 plus hours with people doing, especially in hospitality, working night shifts, working to 3 a.m, eating food together, having a beer. You'll probably spend more time in the workplace than you will at home. It's probably a good idea to actually make sure that you can talk to your team and you can pick up a little cues around them. Again, having hard conversations comes with the more senior leadership of your job. You know, I really, especially the more that things can get tough, or you know, anxiety, depression, and when team members are really struggling, it's important to be able to have hard conversations. You know, some of the horrible situations I've been in, especially around self-harming and stuff like that, the worst thing I've had is the response of when the person who's more senior freezes and they don't know how to deal with it. And I think if you're going to look after people and stuff, you need to be able to actually, I'm not saying you need to be able to know everything perfectly, but just have a good understanding around, or at least a few basics just around how to actually check in with someone and have conversations.
But for a lot of people who don't have those mental health struggles, that doesn't come naturally, which I don't think is their fault at all, which is a very key thing. Like for me, it kind of came not naturally, but I found it quite easy to recognize. Like my best friend is very autistic and very ADHD, so I find it quite easy to recognize those signs in other people and actually know how to respond to it, because I've had 16 years of experience with it, or with my own mental health since I was yay high, so I kind of understand it on like a more natural level. But for people who don't experience it, it doesn't come naturally at all.
No, 100%.
Which is why it's great to discuss it in like a room
These
like this,
conversations.
because I could never blame somebody for not knowing how to handle somebody when they're having a panic attack if they've had no experience with it.
Oh no.
Whatsoever. There is no actual training,
Yeah.
really.
No, 100%.
And it's
not.
different for everyone, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yeah.
But again, I think it's just starting to open up these conversations makes a big difference. Again, going down this bit now, what are some kind of negative barriers that you've experienced? And again, it could just be one example out there. Again, the common one I'll use is when I worked at McDonald's a couple of years ago. I came as non-binary, and I'm very, I think, especially because of my autism, I'm very outspoken. You know, I'll say things out loud that I'm very much of a big believer of. And when I came as non-binary, I had to deal with a few homophobic kind of comments, and that I had to go sit down, do a whole HR incident thing, and I had to write it and actually make an official complaint. And the thing was, it was a really hard thing, but it's the only silver lining I found out of it was it gave me more confidence to advocate for myself. But I think there are still barriers within the industry, and a lot of it is just, it's often, again, just not necessarily respecting other people, or again, taking jokes too far. Again, I think there needs to be barriers and stuff, and so there needs to be better communication to when you can draw the line at, or go, actually I don't find that funny, that's actually a bit offensive, but we should be able to apologise and move on together over it.
Yeah, it's easy to pass things off as like banter a lot of the time, especially when you're working around alcohol. Like it's, people get drunk and they say things, and I'm non-binary as well, and I've just, you know, barely had people ever say the right pronouns ever, just because they forget, they don't notice, they're drunk, you know, and it's hard to know when you actually have to back yourself and turn around and go, no, actually that is wrong. Can you, you know, literally treat me with respect it can be quite hard to like advocate for yourself. That's something I find really difficult because I just let things slide a lot of the time.
100%.
Yeah, so that's cool that you managed to do that.
Yeah. Again, I think there's 2 times in my life where I've had to advocate actually for my complaint, sit down with HR, got the complaint resolved, and it's actually come through. But I know that's not always the case. Again, there is a lot of times I let things slide myself. But I just hope that by having these conversations, we bring things into the light, that we can actually start to recognize what is kind of toxic and discriminatory behaviour, and we can work to change that and change the systems. Because again, a lot of us are career bartenders, you know, this is our life, since we have to make sure that we look after the ecosystem.
Yeah, I like the ecosystem.
The ecosystem. I'm trying to think of specific stories. I definitely remember like late teens after like a traumatic moment, I got asked to go home because apparently I was too sad coming into work. I wish that was a joke, but apparently I was too depressed, and all the colleagues was, instead of going, "Are you alright?" they were just like, "Maybe you should go home." And
The
I'm
guy
like,
with depression's too sad.
do you know what I
What do you
mean?
mean?
They knew about it as well, and the worst part was that it was the management that I told the incident beforehand, which I won't share here, but it was a traumatic moment, and they were still like very not, how do I describe it? Not very welcoming or open to like actually going, "Hey, do you want time off?" They were just like, "No, you should go home." And I was
Just
like, "Well, that's."
dismissive of it, but also didn't want to
They didn't
address
want.
it
Yeah.
directly. They just didn't want to deal with it at all.
And it was the latter that I think was the part that just annoyed me more than anything else. Like, I'm not saying that the action of sending me home wasn't incorrect, because chances are, like, actually being in like a safe space mentally would be a lot helpful for me getting out of the funk. But at the same time, it was the method of which was the harsher thing to get to. And that was probably the first time where I kind of felt very excluded, just because my brain wired weird. Do you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
there's been few moments in like the recent years of like working full time of feeling quite excluded. For like, I don't know, as an example, loads of people in like previous workplaces, all they wanted to do after work was go for drinks, or
Yeah.
like do drinks before work or something like this, and I'm like, I'm surrounded by booze all the time. I'm kind of like, I quite
It's
like
not
to have like a
healthy.
little break every now and then, but because of that, you know, you're still not getting involved in conversations within work. You're kind of an outsider, and I'm like, well, that doesn't really help the anxiety either. Oh god! So then it all just spirals kind of out of control. So like, I guess like the solution from that is, you know, if you see somebody outside of your circle, which I like did in my previous place, if I ever saw anybody who was like a bit sullen or down on themselves, like explain the inside joke to them, make them feel involved, even if they think you're weird or they don't understand why you think this meme is hilarious. Like, at least spark the conversation so they don't feel left out. I guess like the main solution to that, or it was in this specific scenario. But yeah, a lot of that.
No, 100%. I think getting people involved and stuff, and finding activities outside of work to do together can often be a great way. I'm part of a running club. My run club on Mondays is hospitality. It's a bunch of chefs who decided to start running, and we love it. And I took one of my colleagues across to come with me, and we now meticulously run together pretty much. And even though I've now left that workplace, we still run together, and we still check in and we catch up, and it's nice because even if we're not always running on the same Monday, we'll sometimes tag into the group. Oh, I've gone for a great run. I've done a 5k around here, and you'll get a response and stuff. And I think if you're gonna do this kind of work, it's so important to be able to take yourself outside of it and find hobbies and interests that isn't hospitality related, and especially for burnout as well. And neurodivergent individuals are more likely to experience burnout because we're so intensely involved in what we do. You know, very much believe, I know for myself, I'm a very much heart on my sleeve type person. Everything I do is so personal and matters to me. and it's why I'd rather do a 60-hour week, making sure the bar's perfect, than do 45 and just be like, oh, it's fine. And again, I think it's understanding the little ways that we can prevent that from just good communication, handovers, just being like, well, this is what needs done in the morning, great, I don't need to come in early, I can do that, I know exactly what needs to be done in the morning. And again, it's also putting people in the right positions when they are working. You know, I'm better with setups and close downs because I'm very meticulous at what I'm doing. But one of my colleagues, who's a bit of a cowboy, and he loves when I call him that, because you put him on the dispense station and he'll just pour out drinks, be amazing. But see, when you're trying to get him to close, oh my God, I feel like I've seen snails close faster than him. Because he used so much energy during the shift that trying to get him to remember the small tasks for the closing would be a nightmare. And again, the big thing to do is it's maybe having short checklists, or just be like, get someone to go over and be like, have we done all these things, or just double check. Because it's not making someone feel bad at their work, but it's just, we're human. And I think when you assign people tasks, you always have to account for human error.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I wanted to go back and like touch on the doing things outside of work, because I know there's quite often neurodivergency and addiction can go hand in hand, and I've had my own struggles with that. And I think it's very important to build healthy relationships and healthy hobbies outside of just going out and having drinks or doing things after work, especially when you work somewhere late.
Yeah.
Like doing things like a hospitality run club, and I know Healthy Hospital are doing quite a lot towards that, but it is really, really important to then do something you love that's not to do with the job that you love, because that can go down a bit of a road, I know, for a lot of us.
No, 100%. Again, I love the cinema. You know, always have any hobbies?
Quite a few.
Steve does everything ever.
Not enough hours in the day. Yeah. Having any interest outside of work is important for literally everybody under the sun. I think, like, for me, having something that can relax my brain is so important. Like, hospitality in general is very exhausting. It's very people-based. You have to be on it all the time. You have like your set routines and how you discuss people. Everybody has different needs. You need to be able to read people in half a second. It can be quite not natural, but it can be done a lot easier as time goes on, but it's still a very exhausting field. Like, music will always be the thing that keeps me centered. I would say, like, if you have any hobbies, that best way to put it is find a hobby that balances you outside of your workplace. Because if you have something that's super intense, you need something that could be on the other end of the scale that can bring you to an equilibrium. Music, gaming, drawing are like the main ones for me, but music and video gaming, either disassociating is basically it, just something where my brain stops talking for 2 minutes is the main thing. And like it is also doubly important within the fields of neurodivergency, and probably outside of neurodivergency too, where your brain is consistently ticking or consistently thinking of stuff, and then you're working for 10 hours straight. You don't really have a break within service or within hospitality. You have very little time, so you don't have many hours in the day to actually just stop. So yeah, music is always like either writing music, usually writing or playing music is the thing that stops me from just going on overdrive.
Going down the spiral.
Down the spiral staircase.
Yeah. 100%. That was a big thing that I didn't realise until I think. So I've lived in London now 2 years, and what's really kept me going in London, apart from money, because I do it like four or five times a week. And it's been like
I'm exhausted.
My legs hurt.
It's like, I mean, just trips. Like, I've now got one friend who I go to the theatre with and stuff, and it's just finding little things. But I think doing the research around neurodiversity and starting these talks was super helpful, because I actually got to learn a bit more about my own kind of neurodiversity and my own conditions and what I actually needed to support myself, and taking a little bit of time to understand your brain and your personality, and a bit more about kind of your community as well, because finding your community can be really helpful. And I think I've really found a really great community, and very fortunate I've got to travel because of that community that is very much queer, neurodivergent bartenders from various backgrounds, but we all love to hang out and look at how we're going to support other people. And we're not doing that, we love doing fun stuff. How has the communities been out here for you guys?
I mean, I love the Bath Hospo community. It's changed a lot. I've been in Bath 8 or 9 years, I always forget. So a while now. And I've been firstly working pubs and then working bars for pretty much that entire time. And it's changed a lot, like the faces have changed, but the ethos kind of stays the same. It's always, you know, this job does tend to draw people like us, people who are queer, people who are neurodivergent, people who have mental health issues, just because it's such a stimulating job and it's different every day. People like us are drawn to it. So you do have a bit of an echo chamber sometimes of just all of us are here and we're all very similar, and that's really lovely. But it's really nice to then hang out with people sort of on the other side of it too, who, you know, do this job but aren't necessarily neurodivergent, and get their perspectives and have their perspectives on, you know, what they love about this, what they like to do. Like I feel like if you're only surrounding yourself with people the same as yourself, it's really bad, and that's why I like the Bath community, especially in hospitality, so much, because it is really diverse.
Yeah.
And it's really lovely.
100%.
For me, it's kind of centered around like inclusivity, because like, well, I've been here for just over a year and a half, I think. I came from Cardiff, which is basically a fucking primary school playground. Like it's so catty for anybody who knows Cardiff. And then you come to Bath and like, I don't know, especially in this bar here, I think the boys have done such an incredible job of just creating a space where I don't care who you are, what you want to be called in the most respectful way possible. Just come in and sit down and chill. And that's inherently been very, very positive. Coming from like a very chaotic hospitality city, to a place where, in my head, hospitable is actually the key part of the term hospitality, if you know what I mean. And I know, I think our goal has always been to try and make sure that anybody feels included, regardless of.
Like, we don't always get it right, you know what I mean? But we do try.
But
Trying is the most important part.
Right, yeah.
But it's the part that anybody could ever, that everybody cares about the most, is that aspect of actually, in short, giving a shit about anybody that comes through the door. That means more to us than anybody yourselves as well. And that's something that never really existed previously. So Bath in of itself being a beautiful city, the hospitality community has always been very people driven and caring about the people that come through your door.
Yeah.
Guests, regulars,
It's so
staff.
vast as well.
Yeah, it is. For a city that is very small, there is a lot. And
There's a lot of us.
there's a lot of us. That's kind of what makes Bath really kind of cozy in what is a really busy touristy city. I don't have any other word other than it feels warm. Like, do you know what I mean?
I get you.
No, 100%. I mean, I live in East London. London's like huge, but the way I keep my sanity is by treating it a bit like I get the fun park of big city privileges and events and things, but ultimately my village is East London. Like I live in Shoreditch. I get my haircut in the place around the back of my street, and like they have a run club as well. I go running with them. I've been to a Halloween party that they've had. Like, and I've generally got I've got them on my Instagram and stuff. I get my coffee from the same place. I get my shopping from, I know the folks' names in Aldi because I see them and chat to them. And I have the same 5 bars I like drinking in. or they go to events and stuff, and you pick up the same people. And it's nice when you're out and about and you bump past someone and you stop for 5 minutes to chat. And I think I didn't necessarily get a lot of that when I was growing up. You know, coming from a small Scottish town, I was kind of seen as the bit of the weirdo, the person who didn't socialise well. And even though I had a brother, we hung out with his friends. I struggled to actually find my own friends until I was about 16, 17. And then suddenly, my parents decided to divorce, which was a good thing. But it led to my mum being like, you can have a party yourself. I then got booze, and then got friends. And I think, kind of fun enough, the world of food and drink has led to probably me actually having more friends. I think the mentality of a diverse group of people coming to sit around a table, no matter where you're from, who you are, what wealth background you're from, wherever, it's the idea of you share. You bring something to the table and you share it, no matter it's a bottle of Prosecco or it's a bottle of champagne. You just pull the glass and you share, and that's it. And I think actually talking about this stuff out loud, it's wild to me that how much people I still know stories from who've experienced discrimination, even though the industry is built on such a diverse background. And again, I think it's important that we talk about these things so that we can challenge, as I said.
There's quite a lot of stuff with your upbringing that I kind of resonate with, because similarly, like, I really struggled with, like I mentioned earlier, I really struggled with social cues, understanding conversations, things that were happening around me, the idea that people just sort of understand, like, or things based around assumptions. Like, I didn't actually have what I consider a proper good group of friends until university.
Me neither.
Like, school was in and out friendship groups. College was about the exact same thing. But then, yeah, it led to hospitality, the place where you meet so many people all the time, which gives me anxiety. But, like, that's ended up where you ended up finding, like, an actual group of people that actually do care in a way. And they're all, or like we were saying, they're willing to listen, willing to show like they want you involved in a community. Yeah, quite a lot that I resonate with that.
Yeah, I absolutely wouldn't say boo to a goose before I started in hospitality, and now I am the loudest person in every fucking room.
We know. We know that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, just starting, I came here for uni, and I did uni, but everyone thinks I dropped out. I did uni, I promise. But I started working in bars whilst at uni, and I didn't even really make many friends at uni because I was working 60-hour weeks in various bars to be able to afford to live here, because I don't come from money. But I made all my friends through the jobs I had, not through the course I was on, and then just got absolutely accepted into this community and realised, oh, I can actually be myself, and I can be loud and a bit stupid and a bit of a dipshit and a bit weird, and no one actually minds.
No, 100%.
It's very freeing. You have free will.
You're absolutely. Again, coming from Aberdeen, very small community, there's some wonderful people up there. But yeah, it was that small community to now. I now live in a capital city, and my life feels wild. Some days you can walk down the street wearing whatever you want to, not really bats and eyelids. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how the industry is changing at the moment, and to see more of these talks, and which brings me to kind of the final point of today's talk. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm with Drinks United, and what we've recently done is we've basically decided to get everyone who does equality, diversity, inclusion, safeguarding initiatives and organisations together. We've basically created an advisory council from that. The advisory council sits with the boards from the Drinks Trust, the Wine and Spirit Association, and the WSET. And what we're trying to do is find a more sustainable way of creating EDI within workplaces, within hospitality. So one of the things that we've done is we've set up a website which has a resource hub. The resource hub has policies and templates from all these organisations that if you need advice, say you need a policy around sexual harassment in the workplace, or you want to get a toolkit that will give you hiring insights to make sure that you essentially can deal with any unconscious bias you have, or there's also links to kind of organizations that offer those toolkits, and there's also a chat bot as well, and that will help you kind of find where you want to, so you need support yourself. It'll then direct you onto, say, the Drinks Trust, where you can apply for aid to that, to like financial aid, legal counsel, or there's a few developed programs as well. And the idea is that people are entitled to help within the industry. And I think it's often we don't always know that we are actually entitled to the help. You know, there's quite a few drinks charities out there, and it's always very important. I always want to bring this up, that you know, you are very much entitled to that help if you work in the industry. You know, they are there to help you, and it's, you know, asking for help is one of the best things that you can do. And it's you know, the work that I'm trying to do is with this council is trying to make sure that long term we make these little changes, because again, while advocating for yourself can be hard, I don't necessarily agree that you should have to advocate for yourself. Sometimes, you know, actually not understanding your own rights and understanding what you're entitled to can make a big difference, especially when you start going to interviews. A good question for interviews is asking them what their ADI policy is, because if they don't have one, or they don't really know what the answer is to that, there's a good chance that they might not actually be a completely respectable workplace. I'm not saying some places don't. Some places are new and small businesses. For example, the bar that I went to go work at Lane Calling didn't have one, but I helped set one up with them. Again, it's just tackling the attitude they have, because little things like that will really tell you about a company's culture. But yeah, we're very much, we're here at Drinks United here to support people as much as we can, or try and make sure that there is better policies and actual structures in place for the industry, and we're trying to work with companies and people to do that. But also on an individualistic level, just a reminder that you are entitled to support, and we are here to help as much as we can, or signpost you on to an organisation such as Drinks Trust or Equal Measures that does stuff. Again, that's one of the reasons that we're supporting Equal Measures tonight in the takeover. Is because they give mentorship and qualifications. It's how I got to do my WSET level 2, and they really helped change my life around. Is there any resources, anything you suggest that you just found helpful?
I think you pretty
I
much
think you
touched
just
on
hit
it.
every
Yeah.
single fucking one.
Every single one, yeah.
We have loads of these cards, by the way,
So yeah, if
so
you
please
want-
feel free to take them with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please,
And I
absolutely.
hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, perfect. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna stop recording.
Does anybody else want to